start with, the element blocks here are taken from a pretty fancy periodic table. Usually you see the English name on the element somewhere. This number down here is usually in one of the top corners, and as for these and these, a high school periodic table doesn't usually show them. The ones down here are the number of electrons in each shell of that atom, something you learn about and thus don't just get to reference whenever you want. These here are just showing you what charge the element's ion has, and you usually only see the first one. This title sequence gets a C.
Chemistry. It is the study of what? Anyone? Ben.
Chemicals.
Chemicals. No.
The beginning of this lecture seems to point to it being an introductory chemistry class, like the first one you'd ever take in school. I may be wrong here, but don't Americans get introduced to chemistry earlier than this? Like late middle school? Maybe New Mexico is more behind than Canada, who knows?
Chemistry is the study of matter. But I prefer to see it as the study of change.
This definition of chemistry is accurate. The whole change angle Vince Gilligan wrote here is just for artistic purposes. Chemistry can just as easily be the study of matter's lack of change.
Molecules. Molecules change their bonds. Huh?
This quirky demonstration I can get behind. What I can't get behind is what's behind Walter. Look at this stuff! If you didn't know, this stuff over here is about measuring energy levels of waves, which is something you learn about in physics. This only starts relating back to chemistry when you start to learn about the wave nature of matter, which is way more advanced and comes way later. And as for this stuff here, this is showing what's called orbitals, which are 3D functions that show you where electrons probably are on an atom. This is way upper level though. Up to this point in their education, these students don't even know atoms that look like this. You know, with the neat little rings. Why the hell is Walter showing them orbitals on the first frickin' day? No wonder Jesse flunked out.
Chad, is there something wrong with your table?
This Bunsen burner has been lit the whole time he's been talking and way after he stops needing it. Putting aside how he's wasting gas, this is very dangerous. Had he gestured to Chad's table with his other arm, his sleeve would have caught fire, and on top of his cancer treatment, he can add skin graft operations to his list of medical expenses. Perhaps next class can be about lab safety?
Ionic bonds. Chapter 6.
Ionic bonds already? Damn, this class is moving fast. Not but a minute ago we just learned what chemistry is, and now we're already on to bonds? What's being bonded? An atom? A compound? What the hell even are those? Ionic? I honestly think that everyone in Jesse's class flunked out because of Mr. White's spaghetti lesson plans. How am I supposed to learn when the teacher's teaching style is, oh well, you must have skipped that cutscene? Overall, this first lesson gets an F. Damn! This is the nicest high school chemistry supply room I've ever seen. Rows and rows and rows of beakers and graduated cylinders and every kind of flask you can imagine, far as the eye can see. Don't you guys in America always complain that you have underfunded public schools? Maybe stop wasting all your money on laboratory glassware. It's not cheap, you know.
A round bottom boiling flask, 5,000 milliliters.
Did it ever bother anyone else that this boiling flask looks like it's been lovingly caressed by someone who just finished a large bucket of very buttery movie theater popcorn? Not an inaccuracy or anything, but didn't Walter later go on to say the chemistry must be respected? I don't see much of that here.
Well, I'd cook him one of those. A big one.
One of these? No, this is a volumetric flask. You wouldn't cook in one of these.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't, Jesse, because if you did, that flask would explode from the heat, and I'd expect you to be covered in cuts from all that shattered glass exploding in your face. But hey, maybe Vince forgot to give Jesse a bunch of cuts like he forgot to give him horrifying meth teeth.
No, you don't. A volumetric flask is for general mixing and titration.
No, a volumetric flask is for measuring volume. The narrow neck is so even a small change in volume is more noticeable when you're pouring stuff. Certainly not conducive to mixing. What he actually means is an Erlenmeyer flask. You know, the kind that people use as a universal symbol for the concept of a lab. These are for mixing and titration.
You wouldn't apply heat to a volumetric flask. That's what a boiling flask is for. Did you learn nothing from my chemistry class?
I don't think anyone here did. So this section gets a D.
So, the term chiral derives from the Greek word hand.
It's been like 2 months. You're already moving on to chirality? This, if you didn't know, is a concept in organic chemistry only. And organic chemistry is not something you're even introduced to until you've done normal chemistry for at least a year. As for chirality, I don't know any curriculum anywhere that teaches it in high school, let alone the same semester where you first see the periodic table. Is this the chemistry class your parents talk about when they want you to know how hard things were back in their day? How much content is being covered each day? And we know this is the same intro class from the pilot because look, there's Ben.
But, although they may look the same,
I'd also like to add that I've never seen any organic compound drawn like that. What the hell is CO? Cobalt? I thought this was organic chemistry.
What? Is this going to be on the midterm?
That midterm is going to be the size of a frickin' novel with just the questions alone if Mr. White wants to cover everything from what is chemistry to chirality. So that's another F. Better Watch TV covered this already in his breakdown, but it's worth repeating. What the hell kind of fancy school has super strong acid just on hand whenever, and in such large quantities? The strongest acid I ever got to work with was pretty diluted. It wouldn't even burn through your clothes if you splashed it on you accidentally. The only place storing this much of this strong acid is the plant that manufactured it.
Pretty much everything you could think of. He was a high school teacher. One time he taught about carbon dioxide by making grape soda in class.
That sounds like a cool demonstration, but carbon dioxide, when it's made to be in soda, becomes carbonic acid, which is completely separate from the gas. I would assume a demonstration with the gas itself would be more apt.
And we are going to be watching a very interesting video on carbon.
Huh? We just did chirality the day before. Now the students forgot all about the thing that makes up all the compounds they're studying? When the hell did all that stuff on the board get there? It looks like simple reaction balances from 18 or 19 units prior. I guess one of the other teachers in this classroom must be super behind, trying to stay on Walter's level. Overall, another F. Walter can't be calling in sick all the time with these lessons, putting his poor overworked students behind like that. How the hell are they going to endure the next half of the semester when he dumps the theses of the past 50 Nobel Chem Prize winners on them to study for the final?
chemical reactions involve change on two levels, matter and energy. When a reaction is gradual, the change in energy is slight. I mean, you don't even notice the reaction is happening. For example, when rust collects on the underside of a car.
This class seems to be more conceptual, which is to say the kinetics of the reaction are not what's being studied, rather the idea of observing reactions around you more broadly. Walter labeling this reaction over here decomposition seems to point to this being a lesson more in line with what students would be learning at this stage. So given that students in this universe seem to learn with the swiftness of Hermes, I'm just going to put it in my headcanon that this is Walter's remedial class, which I guess in our reality would be normal speed. Nobody just leaves uncovered flasks full of stuff just out in the open and so close to a ledge. That's also unsafe. I guess that lab safety lesson will have to be delayed some more. After all, his students have like 15 semesters worth of stuff to cram for the next midterm.
5,000 milliliter round bottom. Methods love to brew in this baby.
Actually, Hank, that's a flat bottom, as evidenced by the flat bottom. I thought you'd know about flat bottoms because...
Damn. Chick's got an ass like an onion. Makes me want to cry.
Incorrect bottom judgment aside, this episode gets an F for the lab safety violation.
Monoalkenes, diolefins, trienes, polyenes. I mean, the nomenclature alone is enough to make your head spin.
So why are we learning so much stuff in our first year? It's been like, what, 3-4 months?
But when you start to feel overwhelmed, and you will,
Look at that! I guess Walter doesn't lie all the time.
just keep in mind that one element, carbon.
This periodic table here is more like the one you'd see in a normal high school. Symbol, atomic mass, atomic number, and English name.
Carbon is at the center of it all. There is no life without carbon. Nowhere that we know of in the universe.
In isolation, this lesson is fine, but since we've already been introduced to carbon like 8 frickin' times already, this gets an F.
Nitrogen bonds to oxygen, which in turn... You do know what a bond is?
We've already moved on to organic chemistry and you don't know what bonds are? I can't say at this point I'm surprised, given that Mr. White just assumed everyone had the chemical bond DLC injected into their brains before knowing what chemistry was on the first frickin' day.
Your test score says otherwise. It tells me you don't get it
Yeah, 'cause you never taught it.
at all.
Yeah, but I mean, 58, I was close.
What is close? There's no close in science, Barry.
I'll tell you what's close. Me, to going insane after taking this class. A test on content you never bothered to teach only for Barry to get 58%? How did he even manage that? Organic chemistry before learning about bonds? What's next? Meth cooking and corpse disposal? F. Just like Barry here. This test right here is about the ideal gas law, which is believable. As is this failing grade here. Poor kid probably needed to make sure he didn't press A accidentally so he wouldn't skip any of Mr. White's chemistry cutscenes. And if we're doing ideal gas stuff, what the hell is this reaction balancing stuff doing on the board here?
How far behind can the cops be?
I don't understand.
According to the writer of this episode, Peter Gould, this finger pointing right here was intentional. Cool visual, but why is an abstract painting of a guy pointing in a high school chemistry lab? If you didn't notice, it's been there since the beginning, and it's just weird. This scene, however, not weird, so we'll give it a B. Not the most unrealistic thing to be grading tests like that at this stage. Let it pass.
All right, on the bottom we have a 5% solution of acetic acid in water, and on top a triglyceride. These two liquids, both polar and nonpolar, are what we call immiscible. Boom. No matter how much mechanical energy I apply, their molecular structure, specifically the cohesion of like molecules and repulsion of unlike ones, prevents these two liquids from staying mixed, as you can see. However, if I add to this a specific complex protein, forming what we call an emulsion. In this case, mayonnaise. It's tasty.
Another pretty realistic demonstration and lesson for this level. Solubility, polar and nonpolar compounds, I can see that being taught 6 months into a chemistry school year. Maybe that's why this scene got cut. It's too realistic. Overall, Walter White gets a D for his impossible to follow chemistry curriculum, which coincidentally is probably the average of all who take his class. I'll have to put crappy teacher among the worst, most evil things he's ever done. We'll put it just below declining go-karts with Jesse and just above spending Bogdan's first dollar and wearing a pink sweater. So now you know.